Another Scooby Doo double feature. Both stories I have to read out loud. The first story is a self-insert. Very promising. Now the creator, she isn't sure if these stories are necessarily bad or not, but she thinks that the first one, well, because it's a self-insert, has the possibility of being bad. You know, I guess I can't complain. At least it's not another Ace Oiler story or another SpongeBob story. So, let's read the first story, which is called Unfinished Business. The author is Jellyphant. Interesting name. Here's the summary. Unfinished Business is a self-insert Scooby Doo fanfic about me hanging out with Mystery Inc. and helping them solve a mystery related to the ghost of a suicide victim. Right, so if any of you are bothered by suicide, this is your trigger warning that this story is going to have suicide in it. Or mention suicide. Right. It's rated T, it's in English. It's horror mystery. It's 1700 words, 2 reviews, and it was published of April of this year. Now for me, this year is still 2022. When you're watching this, it might not be 2022 anymore. So, there's that. Jermaine Dion Carter. Okay, who is that supposed to be exactly? May 22nd, 2021. Unfinished Business. Wait a minute, is that supposed to be the Jellyphant's real name? Please tell me you didn't put your real name, including your middle name. One Friday morning, Mystery Inc. invited me to spend the weekend with them. They picked me up from my house that afternoon. We hit the road. As we drove, Daphne reapplied her makeup. Velma did some reading on her tablet. Shaggy, Scooby, and I made quick work of the sandwiches they brought. Well, this is reading very atrociously like a summary. Our first stop was a large shopping mall. Scooby, Shaggy, and I dashed to the food court. We ate our fill of junk food. Velma dropped by the bookstore to check out its selection of mystery novels. Fred visited a sportswear store. Daphne went to a clothing boutique. Predictable. While browsing, Daphne came across a green and white striped sweater with darker green trim. She also found a light green escarf or scarf. I bet Jermaine would love this, Daphne said with a smile. Finally, some dialogue. Jermaine, I think, is supposed to be the person who wrote this story. That would be like if I decided to write a fanfiction and I decided to put my full name. Don't do that. I mean, if you're going to be writing like an actual book, maybe. But when it comes to fanfiction, don't do that. Have a screen name. 2 hours later, we all met back up near the food court. Jermaine, I found the perfect top for you, Daphne said. Yes, Jermaine is supposed to be the author. You did? I asked. Yes, come on, let's go, she said. She took me by the hand. She led me to the boutique. She pointed out the sweater and scarf. She handed them to me. And then she got arrested because she stole them. Go try them on, she said. I went into one of the dressing rooms, changed shirts, and walked back out. How do I look? I asked. You look fabulous, she said. Are you sure, Daphne? I asked. I feel like I'm just wearing a green version of Fred's outfit, I said. Trust me, you look nice. Let's go show the rest of the gang, she said. The story is very droll. She paid for my new outfit. Okay, never mind. I guess she won't be going to jail. We left the store. We headed back to the food court. "Hey, gang, check out Jermaine's new look," she said as she gestured towards me. "Wow," said Velma. "You look very distinguished, if I do say so myself," Fred said. "Like, right on, man!" I am never doing that. I am so sorry. Right, I'll just stick to my normal voice. Meg has the voice acting down a bit better than me, apparently. Okay, I'm sorry. That was so bad. Like, right on, man. Shaggy said. I'm not even going to attempt to do Scooby. "2 thumbs up," Scooby said. "See, Jermaine?" Daphne asked. "I said you look fabulous," she said. "Thanks, guys," I said. "I'm never wrong when it comes to fashion," Daphne said. "Does this person only know the word said and asked?" "You're right, and thanks for paying for my clothes, Daphne," I said. "Aw, you're welcome," Daphne said. Shaggy, Scooby, and I bought more food. We left them all. As we got back in the mystery machine, Velma turned on her tablet. A news article popped up. "Jinkies," Velma said. Shouldn't it say Velma exclaimed, seeing she has an exclamation mark in the word Jinkies? "What is it, Velma?" Daphne asked. "There's been alleged ghost sightings in the area," Velma said. "Ghosts?" Scooby and Shaggy asked. "Yes, apparently it's the ghost of a girl named Ava. Oh," Velma said. "What's wrong, Velma?" Fred asked. "According to this article, Ava took her own life for mysterious reasons. Her parents were so consumed by grief, they sold the house, moved out of the neighborhood, and never looked back. The house has been abandoned since. People have been reporting strange lights and sounds coming from it for years," Velma said. "Well, gang, it looks like we have another mystery on our hands," Fred said. "Like, I was afraid you were going to say that," Shaggy said. Scooby whimpered. "Jermaine, are you in?" Fred asked. I don't know. I've struggled with thoughts of ending my own life since I was 13. I said. They all gasped. "Oh, Jermaine," Daphne said. "I'm sorry, Jermaine. We didn't know," Fred said. "Like, yeah, man," Shaggy said. Scooby snuggled up to me. "It's okay, guys," I said. "Jermaine, if you want us to take you back home, we definitely can," Fred said. "No, I've always believed in ghosts. I also know this could just be somebody in a costume. If someone's using Ava's suffering and death for their own benefit, I need to see this mystery through to the end. As a fellow suicidal person, I owe it to her," I said. "That's very noble of you, Jermaine," Velma said. "It's also very sweet," Daphne said. "Okay then, let's get this done," Fred said. We left the mall's parking lot. We stopped by the next gas station to refuel the mystery machine. Scooby, Shaggy, and I bought even more food before we got on the road again. Later that night, we arrived in Ava's old neighborhood. We went to her former home. The full moon was out. There was a chill in the air. Scooby shivered before jumping into my arms. I shivered too. "Like, man, it sure is spooky out here," Shaggy said. "You said it, Shaggy," I said. "Jermaine, are you sure you still want to do this mystery with us?" Fred asked. "Yes," I said with a nod. We all went inside. "Let's split up, gang. Daphne and I will check the living room. Shaggy, you, and Scooby, see what you can find in the kitchen. Velma, you and Jermaine go upstairs and inspect the bedrooms," Fred said. We went our separate ways. Daphne and Fred found a few old photo albums. They combed through them. They also leafed through several old magazines. Shaggy and Scooby made themselves a snack. Velma and I explored Ava's room. Suddenly I felt very cold. I sat down on the bed. I looked up and saw a ghost materialize right in front of me. It was Ava. "Get out," she said. I bolted out the door and into the hallway. I wasn't looking where I was going. I accidentally bumped into Velma. Her glasses were knocked off. They fell on the floor. My glasses. I can't see anything without my glasses, Velma said. She fumbled around for them. I picked them up and gave them back to her. I am so sorry about that, Velma, I said. It's okay, Velma said. What's gotten into you? She asked. I just saw Ava's ghost, I said. Really? Velma asked. Yes, I said. After a moment, Ava floated out of her room. Jinkies, Velma said. Get out, Ava said. Velma and I ran downstairs. We collided with Fred and Daphne. Sorry, guys, I said. What's going on? Fred asked. Ava's ghost, upstairs, Velma said as she pointed towards the stairs. Ava floated down the stairway and towards us. Jeepers, Daphne said. Like, what's all the commotion? Shaggy asked. He and Scooby walked out of the kitchen with food in their arms. Ava glared and growled in their direction. Wait a minute, why would there be food if the house was abandoned and it's apparently been abandoned for years? Are they eating like a multi-fit? Well, it is Scooby and Shaggy. I shouldn't be surprised by this. Their jaws dropped. They also dropped all the food they were holding. Zoinks, he said. Ruh-roh, Scooby said before he jumped into Shaggy's arms. Get out, Ava said. We raced back outside. We piled into the mystery machine. We were out of breath. The house front door slammed itself shut. Now, what now? I asked. It's trapping time, Fred said. Fred went around the back of the house. He built an elaborate trap. It had several nets and ropes. Now all we need is for someone to lure the ghost here, Fred said. I'll do it, I said. Jermaine, are you sure? Fred asked. Yes, it's not fair Scooby and Shaggy are always the bait. Besides, this case is personal for me, I said. I'm really enjoying your commitment to helping us solve this mystery, Jermaine, Velma said. We all are, Daphne said with a smile. I went back inside. I returned to Ava's room. She appeared before me again. Get out, she said. She chased me all around the house until we came outside near the back. Now, Fred said. Fred, Daphne and Velma dropped the trap on Ava. It went right through her. They couldn't believe it. That's impossible, Fred said. Ava made the flap fly up. Made the trap fly up. That was me, not the author. It ensnared the entire gang. She closed in on them. Ava, wait, I said. She stopped. Why are you doing all of this? I asked. Well, because you're invading her home, and she said several times for you to leave, and you won't leave. Just saying. I want to be left alone, Ava said. Okay, fine. We'll leave you alone. Just let them go, I said. Ava released the gang from the trap. They fell on the ground. Leave this place, Ava said. They hightailed it back to the mystery machine. I began to follow them. Ava stopped me. You're the first person to try and talk to me in a long time, Ava said. Why? She asked as she got close. I know how you feel and what you went through, I said. What's your name? She asked. Jermaine, I said. How could you possibly know what my life was like? She asked. I know you killed yourself. I've contemplated killing myself for almost 15 years, I said. 15 years? She asked. Yes, I've struggled with suicidal thoughts since middle school, I said. Oh, she said. She put her hand over her mouth. Back in the mystery machine, the gang freaked out over everything that happened. That was a real ghost, Velma said. Jermaine's still back there with her all by himself, Daphne said. We have to go save him, Fred said. Like that creepy ghost lady said to leave, Shaggy said. Yeah, Scooby said. We've got to do something, Daphne said. I'm sorry, it sounds like you do understand where I'm coming from after all, Ava said. Why did you kill yourself, Ava? I asked. I don't know, she said. She turned away from me. You don't want to talk about it? That's fine, I said. Why all the weird lights and noises in the house? I asked. To keep people away. Tell your friends to leave and never come back, she said. We'll make sure no one ever disturbs you again, I said. She disappeared. I went back to the mystery machine. Jermaine, the gang said. They got out and ran towards me. We're so glad you're okay, Daphne said. Like, that was so scary, man, Shaggy said. Where's the ghost? Fred asked. Yeah, where's Ava? Velma asked. I don't know where she went, but she wants to be left alone, I said. Works for me, Scooby said with a deep laugh. I guess some mysteries are better left unsolved, Velma said. Wise words, I said. We got back into the mystery machine and drove off. I mean, I feel bad for the author. if, you know, they're being truthful about their mental state. I do feel bad for them. But, you know, writing a fanfic of this nature, especially with how inconsiderate the Scooby Gang were being near the end, just not... It didn't flow. It did not flow, let's be real. I'm not really sure what to say about this one. I mean, it was very simple. It read like a summary. It's a very touchy subject. You know, suicide is not something to joke about. And, you know, I am hoping that this author, Jermaine, if that is your real name and whatnot, I am hoping that you're in a better place, and please don't be upset that I didn't like your story. I just didn't really feel like it was appropriate. I mean, if you wrote this, you know, as a means to cope, then I do understand, but some other people might take offense to this. Just giving you a heads up on that. Maybe not, but I don't know. It's a very touchy subject. And I would recommend, dearie, in the future, please do not do a self-insert. If you want to base the character off of yourself, that's one thing, but do not have it be a self-insert. Right. Let's move on to the next story. Meddling with Times, or Meddling with the Times. The author is Laid Back Brit. A fellow British person, how charming. After the gang successfully captured, that's promising, another ghost they've been in pursuit of during their latest mystery, they realize, two typos in the author's note, how much the world around them has changed. Things have got a lot different since the days when the ghosts and monsters they were after were just people in spooky costumes. The way these crooks work has changed since they have changed, while these meddling kids and their dogs have not, and their dog have not. Rated Fiction K. It's in English. It's humor parody. It's a little over 1,000 words. 1 review, 2 faves, 1 follow, and it was published in September of this year. Disclaimer from the author, I don't own Scooby Doo. Alright guys, we did it, Fred cheered. We captured the ghost. We captured the ghost. Shaggy raised an eyebrow as he placed a hand onto Scooby Doo's head to scratch behind the canine's ear. Like it was Scoob who led the ghost into the trap for him to be captured, which you agreed to do after we bribed you with Scooby snacks, Daphne sighed. As usual. Yeah. Scooby smiled as he licked his lips. Right, guys. The point is to get the ghost... Oh, I'm sorry. Alright, guys. The point is the ghost is caught, Velma said. That was my bad. It's time for us to find out who it really is. Stand aside, Fred ordered. Unmasking the villain is my job. The 4 teenagers and their Great Dane looked down at the ghost who was tied up in front of them. They had spent the last several hours tracking him down in a spooky old house, finding out that he was up to and looking for clues. As always, their pursuing of him had resulted in a chase that had been filled with hijinks and disappearing in and out of doors. Only when Shaggy and Scooby managed to lure the ghost into Fred's trap was when he was finally caught by Mystery Inc. All right, you masked crook, Fred said. Let's see who you really are. The blonde put his hand out, about to grab hold of the white sheet which covered the culprit, about to pull it away to reveal his true identity. However, to everyone's surprise, the hand went straight through the ghost. It swept around inside him as if nothing was there. Zoinks! Shaggy exclaimed. Like, that's pretty spooky, man. Rah! Scooby agreed. Rookie! Jenkies! Velma's eyes widened behind her glasses. How are you doing that, Freddy? I don't know. I can't get a ghost of his mask. I can't get a ghost of his mask. Is that supposed to be a pun? Fred frowned as he tried again and again to unmask the ghost. I don't think it was. I think that was a typo. His hand couldn't even feel anything as it went straight through the villain, completely unable to get a hold of his costume. To pull it away. It's not a mask, Fred muttered. And it's not an animatronic. It's not even a puppet on strings. Which can only mean, Daphne said uneasily, like it's a real ghost. Shaggy squeaked in terror. "A real roast?" Scooby shivered. "Rah-oh!" Don't ask why I'm kind of doing the Scooby voice with my accent. I should probably just try doing Scooby, but I don't know. I mean, I really mucked up Shaggy. I mean, maybe I can try during his next, dialogue. "Of course I'm not a real ghost, you dumb kids," the culprit suddenly said. "I'm CGI. Oh, that explains it. The ghost and the 4 youngsters stared in disbelief at the ghost. He had managed to escape the ropes that had been binding him in the trap he had fallen into. Well, if you CGI the entire time, how do you get bounded by the trap? No longer restrained, he zipped through the air, in and out between the members of Mystery Inc. He even managed to pass through Scooby's body. "Right!" Scooby yelped. Having a ghost passing through him wasn't nice for the canine. "So, you're not a man in a mask?" Fred asked the ghost. "Of course not, Blondie," the ghost thundered. "No man in a mask would be able to float around like I'm doing now. It's amazing what you can do with the wonders of CGI. "Jeez," Fred muttered, with a rub of his chin. "Criminals don't pretend to be ghosts and monsters like they used to." "Seriously, dude, get with the times. No crook dresses up in Halloween costumes to scare people off in order to commit their crimes anymore." The ghost narrowed his computer-generated eyes at the leader of Mystery Inc. "Just like nobody wears escorts anymore." "What?" Fred's eyes went wide with shock as he clutched his beloved accessory, which he always wore. "Escorts aren't in style anymore." "Honestly, Freddy, I've told you to come to me for some tips on the latest fashion," Daphne scolded, "but you just wouldn't listen to me. Maybe if you kids didn't go around meddling in affairs that don't concern you and your dog, you'd be able to keep up to date with everything going on around you." The ghost sneered as he took off into the air, preparing to soar away. "Maybe then you'll figure out a way to find out who I am. Oh, and get a haircut, hippie." "That's not cool, man." Shaggy scowled at the insult that had been hurled his way as he watched the ghost flying off. "If I get my hair cut, I won't be a Shaggy anymore." "Rippy!" Scooby laughed at what his best friend had been called, which he simply couldn't say correctly himself. "Red, Well, Velma sighed. "It looks like our next mystery is to find out who created the computer-generated ghosts." It was just one ghost, though. Why is it plural? "Should we split up and look for clues, Freddy?" Daphne asked the blonde, fluttering her lashes. Fred gave no answer. He didn't even notice the redhead's subtle attempts to get him to go off alone with her. He was in too much shock at how much things had changed in the modern age. He and his friends were still solving mysteries as they always had done back in the day, but the world around them had evolved while they had stayed exactly the same. "Gee, I wish we could go back in time to the old days," Fred murmured. "Things were so much simpler then. The ghosts and monsters we went after would always be men in masks, not CGI. But if it's a computer-generated ghost, it can't really steal anything unless you're using it as a distraction. Plus, everyone loved escorts back then. I don't think I can give up this beloved accessory of mine, which I've worn since we went on our first mystery." Fred's shoulders sagged, lowering his gaze as he peered glumly down toward his escort. He pressed his hand against it, holding it dearly in his reluctance to give up his favorite piece of clothing. To this day, Fred still had no idea that escorts had become out of fashion since before he had put on his for the gang's first mystery back in the late 60s. The end. Well, that was rather silly. I don't know, the story was just rather silly. I mean, it was decently written, I will say that. But aside from that, it was just kind of silly. And, a couple of typos, nothing major. I think most of the typos were in the author's note. But, I mean, I would say this one was definitely written better than the first story. But at least the first story, I beget the controversy of the first story being about, the story just kind of was a waste of time, in my opinion. I wouldn't even say it was a parody. It was just, I don't know. maybe if they had more going on with it, maybe if it wasn't a one-shot, if this was like, you know, the Scooby Gang, you know, having it be like a short story, like several chapters of them, you know, getting used to the times, and then they capture this criminal at the end of the story, then it would have had substance. But aside from that, just as a one-shot, to me, it doesn't really work. So, laid back Brit here. Let's see. Pop-up. Goodbye. I don't care. This person has written 457 stories. Bloody oh my word. I think this is even more than the other person I reviewed a few episodes back. Oh, the Halloween story. The Nightmare Before Christmas story. That's it. That one I think was a ton of stories too. I think that was like 200 or something. I could be wrong. But, man, over 400 stories. Almost 500. They have a ton of favourites too. They have over 200 favourites. And 59 favourite authors. Right. If you want to check out their library, go ahead, but it's going to take you a while because, again, 457 stories. 457 stories. Wow. Right. Well, thank you all for watching today's episode. If you did like it, please be sure to leave a like and leave a comment. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I would greatly appreciate it. For those who are struggling, know that your friends and family will be there for you. And know that there is a hotline that you can call for suicide prevention. No matter what you may think, you are not alone. I'll see you on the next episode. Until then, cheerio.